Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Bléu Trudge. In this episode, we have our very first guest, Mr. Lei Xing, who is a Chinese EV analyst who's based in the US. Now, this video is split up into three parts, just because it's a bit too long. Anyways, let's get an introduction from him.
All right. Hello, Rahul, and hello, Saashrik. I hope I pronounced your name correct. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm coming to you live from Massachusetts. It's about 11:30 in the morning here on a Saturday. A little bit about myself. I am the former chief editor of China Auto Review, having covered and opined and written about the Chinese auto market for pretty much the last 25 years, and also including my current capacity as a co-host of the China EVs and More podcast and an independent industry analyst and consultant. Current focus is on the China EVs and obviously what's happening in China and the rest of the world. So thank you for having me.
I think they're putting water in it. Me personally.
What are they putting in the cars that are so special that are selling, right? Well, we begin with a huge question that alone could take hours and hours to answer. But you mentioned about the last 5 years. I think the last 5 years, the phenomenon that have been the China EVs really is a combination of the industry that have grown with BYD, right? You mentioned BYD as the leader, as the silent leader. The previous, however many years, the China, I'll give you a quick history of the Chinese auto industry and the market. It's hard to believe that less than 25 years ago, so in 2001, is when the encouragement of purchase of personal private vehicles was actually written into the official document in China, right? It's only been less than 25 years. And 25 years later, China, if not the autos, the EVs are taking over the world. It's what's in the vehicles, right? It's many things. China now has the design. China now has the talent that put into these tech into the vehicles, the tech themselves, the smart cockpit, the smart driving, or the advanced driver assistance systems that are very advanced. How you communicate with the vehicles, the HMI, I mentioned the smart cockpit, the comfort,
I've
the
seen those TikToks
material.
on the suspension system on these cars, right?
Yeah,
You have these stack of glasses and then
the champagne. One of the many stunts that you will see out of China. Comfort, right? Comfort comes in many ways. Materials, suspension, ride handling. All of these combined is what you're seeing in the Chinese, mostly the Chinese EVs, right? Because when we talk about China auto market these days, it's the EVs that are dominating the headlines, and really, I mean, some of these things are what I would say is this kind of the rest of the world is feeling of this tsunami, right? This wave of when we think about China, at least on the EV side, you no longer think about cheap, inferior quality. You think about premium. You think about avant-garde, forward, right?
yeah, definitely.
And affordability.
Yes.
Not cheap, but affordability. What you get, bang for the buck. The components, the hardware, the software, all of the things, they're leading. They're leading. I think we make that very clear at the top when answering this question. They're not behind. They're leading. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
And
it,
hence
yes,
that
yes.
the answer to your question.
Like for
What's inside?
a very long time, right? If you wanted EVs, you go for Tesla. If you want luxury, you either have Maybach from Mercedes or you have Rolls Royce, right? But then I was watching YouTube the other day, and then there's this Chinese vehicle. It's huge. It's like a minivan almost, and then it's electric. It has insane interiors, right? And then it also has like self-driving and like all of the new features that the new Teslas have. And then it was like the quarter of the price of the Maybach. And I was like, yo, they should have this in the US. But then why doesn't
I'm
exactly why doesn't the US
I'll be
adopt it?
the number one. I'll be the number one person to buy a Neo, a BYD, a Li Auto, an Expo.
Yeah.
I'll put down the order right away if they come to the US.
Yeah, I mean,
But they can't currently, right?
Yes.
yeah,
We're
I
not going to
think
go into why.
it's probably like the US like companies in the US, they just don't want Chinese cars, because if Chinese cars come into the US, I would assume most of the US market would just, like, the US companies would just die out, because Chinese cars are just so much ahead at this moment.
Hmm.
The only way to prop up US companies is to like limit the Chinese vehicles coming in.
I don't want to be on either end of the extreme. First of all, saying the Chinese coming will wipe out the U.S. auto industry, I wouldn't want to go there, but I do want to say it will have a huge impact
On the market.
because first of all, in the U.S., if you understand, there are actually a lot of consumers. Um, they could be retail investors looking at some of these Chinese stocks. They could be regular consumers that they would want these tech forward advanced EVs that are available at a lower price with better, again, comfort, handling, quality. But at the same time, we do have this kind of the protection, if you will. First of all, the 100%, and now just Trump announced another 130% tariff, right, yesterday, on the EVs and all the goods that are coming from China, supposedly,
India still
and
has
then the
like
ban,
India still has a
and then the
200.
ban, the software ban on ICVs for model year 2027 coming from China. So there's these two walls
Yeah.
right now in the US blocking the Chinese EVs coming. But I think from the other perspective, um, for the Chinese themselves, it would be they have to look at it as also in terms of if they do come in, the US consumer, what type of vehicles are popular? The pickup trucks, right? The huge SUVs. Sure, they can cover some of these segments, but uh, the US consumers are also not as, I would say, first of all, they're relatively older than the Chinese consumers.
Yes, you have
They look at brands
insane
more.
brands like Ford,
Yeah,
Ram,
yeah,
Dodge.
yeah.
Like they're like the American staples for cars, right? You
Hmm.
can't go like a few steps without spotting a Ford on the road, right? And then
Yeah,
you can't expect Chinese vehicles to swoop in and like try to dominate the market. So like I see it's like a type of prevention by the president, but like, is it really necessary? Is the question.
I mean, okay. I was curious, right? You mentioned pickup trucks. So you think, are there not many pickup trucks like in from Chinese brands? Like,
well, there are quite a few pickup Chinese pickup brands. BYD has the Shark in Mexico, right? That's kind of it was originally reported that they could be using that vehicle as to come into North America, into the US, but obviously that's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, your questions about why, uh, to me, I think in a perfect market, if there is a market economy, let them come in, right? Let them compete. But I think that again, it's the Chinese do have these vehicles at much more affordable prices and tech that will eat into the market share, hence the tariffs in the first place. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think if they come in, they would hurt at least the pickup. You know, the Dodge, the Chevrolet, the Ford pickups. They'll dominate, continue to dominate the market, even though some of the bigger SUVs, because the way the U.S. consumers use them will be a little bit different than the Chinese consumers. So I think in that perspective, I wouldn't necessarily think the Chinese come in will impact significantly the homeboys, right? The Fords, the GMs, and the Stellantis groups. But they will impact, I think, obviously Tesla, that some of the compact EV SUV EVs that are launching. I mean, the Chinese, they're much more competitive.
So I had a question, right? You said the terrain, like how it's different from China and the US, and how the company really have to design the cars around the terrain. How do you think the different lifestyles, right? You see, China, in some cases, has more compact roads, thinner roads, narrower roads, versus the United States, which have longer, broader, and like you have more commute day to day, right? So how do you think that's going to affect the design of the cars? Do they have to completely redesign the lineup, or can they use the same thing?
Well, I think there are some similarities and also differences. The similarity, actually, believe it or not, both Chinese and Americans, they love big cars.
Yeah.
So in the recent, when I was in China, right, I witnessed personally the launch of quite a few of these larger, fully electric SUVs from NIO. You know, Xpeng, Xiaomi is launching their next third model, which will be a huge SUV. It's an extended range SUV, and but I think if you look at where a big difference is the infrastructure. Okay, the charging infrastructure is it's very mature in China, along the expressways, off into the countryside. In the U.S., it's still a minus. I think even though we have the Tesla supercharger network, which can now be utilized by different other third-party brands and OEMs, it's still an issue. I think not as well developed as in China, where the consumers, I think they feel peace of mind driving around an EV. I don't think we're there yet in the US. So hence the ICE, the big pickups and SUVs, I think still dominate the market. But certainly in certain states, Texas, California, New York, Massachusetts included, I think we're seeing more penetration, whereas in other states it's not the same. Whereas in China, I think many cities, even the countrysides, the EV penetrations are pretty high now, increasing dramatically. So that's the difference.
I just wanted to say something interesting about the supercharger network, right? So basically the Tesla supercharging network, the interesting thing about it is like it's not powered by fossil fuels. The electricity that comes to the supercharging network, it comes through the solar panels that are installed there. So they're much, they're way the environment, and I feel like that should be more, I guess that should be the way most like electric vehicle charging stations should be.
Yeah, I think you're probably getting to the I think this is a great debate that industry have, fossil fuels, where the electricity, coal burning, where the electricity coming from. I think China is looking at that. China is also a lot of these newer supercharging networks set up by these brands are also having that capability, like the Tesla supercharging that you've just described. But at the same time, I think China is shifting from more diversification of where the electricity come from. They're not there yet, but obviously China has a long-term goal out into 2030, 2060 of more green, renewable energy backed electricity. But yes, currently the electricity is a lot, a huge percentage of where the electricity come from is from coal, right? Coal burning generated, and that's a debate that we're going to have, right? Whether it's green,
If it's
the
not,
life cycle
it
of it.
defeats the purpose, right? It just defeats the purpose of having an EV at some level. If you get an EV, you're doing it for the environment, and it's defeating the purpose of doing it for the
Yeah,
environment.
China is certainly aware of that, and I think we're seeing that transition toward more renewable, toward more green generation. We're not there yet, but I think it's a process. So yeah, that's the good and bad of EVs. But at least from a penetration and the habit side, China is far past that tipping point. Right, this year we're going to be more than half of the new vehicles sold. Light vehicles sold will be NEVs.
So I was wondering, right? So okay, let me phrase this right. Yeah. So how much of a role does the government play in the innovation, like compared to private like companies? How much of a role does the government play in like exacerbating the innovation?
You mean in helping, in supporting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think in China it's always a tandem, right? It's not one group of. It's not the private or the public or the government. In China, what we have is called this. In Chinese, it's called the 产学研, which means it's manufacturing, it's the academics. So, and then obviously the government, what they have to do is have a roadmap. And China already have had this roadmap, very top-down roadmap of where what the industry wants to achieve in terms of target. We have the 2030, we have the carbon dual carbon kind of the targets at the very top, and then we have the EV, the Made in China 2025, many policies that have come out, and the latest, I think, a good example of where the research and the academics come into play is several researchers out of Chinese universities recently discovered a breakthrough on solid-state batteries, solid-state lithium metal batteries, which could
I
be
heard about
crucial.
that.
You heard about that, right?
Yeah,
Which could be crucial in accelerating the commercialization of solid-state batteries, which I think will still only happen post 2030.
I heard
But
about it in like technology, right? I think even now they're trying to bring that into the phones. And I heard about a phone that would last for like a week on one charge. I don't know if it's how true that is, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure they had that like way of manipulating the software and making it slower, because like less
Yeah.
thing. But then it's still quite interesting to see how.
Yeah, so what I was saying is, so these are where the research institutions and the, institution like Chinese Academy of Sciences, right? University, they come into play where these combined with the industry, manufacturing and the industrial base and the government policies will help progress of where China want to be in terms of these latest and the greatest tech that go into the next generation of EVs. Something like a solid state battery could have an EV go 2,000 kilometers on one charge. it's still far-fetched at this point, but we can think about where the industry can go forward out many years into the future, right? And policies, China has always had a policy environment, regulatory environment that either supports or regulates. I think in recent times, there's been more regulatory scrutiny on things like safety of ADAS systems, driver assistance system, payment terms, right? Because in China there's this word called involution, which you all probably heard about, that the over competing, drive to the bottom, competing to the bottom, that China does not want us to go out of hand. So there's going to be more regulatory policies that come out.
Unless you're
Kind of say, you know,
saying,
yeah,
unless you're
to
like the downfall, the down, like, what were you
yeah,
saying?
like the price war, right, is one example.
Oh, price. Like, I thought you were saying, like innovation is slows down. Could you like can you say
No,
that?
no, I wouldn't say the innovation would slow down because of that. There's still going to be innovation, but it's just trying to the government trying to say, you know, hold on, let's make sure the livelihood of the companies are at stake, and we're competing healthily rather than competing ferociously and not in line with you know the rules, right? The payment terms, right? 60-day payment terms is one thing that's requiring companies to play by the rules, and you know, so
Yeah. Also, I had a question, right? How does, wait. So you see a lot of people, right? They're like against EVs. They think it doesn't have a soul. They're the guys who have like V8s in their cars, the loudest cars on earth. And then, how does this affect the EV market? Are the EV makers learning from this?
well, the petrol heads, right?
Yeah.
Basically, I there's always going to be proponents and opponents to any technology, AI, EVs, what have you. But it doesn't stop the progression of where the industry is headed, which is the ultimate roadmap is fully electric vehicles.
So fully
That's
electric vehicles are inevitable, right? You're not going to change.
it's inevitable, right? It's not going to change. I don't
Exactly.
think a few opponents. Sure, in certain regions of the world, right? In the U.S., in Europe, we're kind of walking back from the previous goals that these OEMs have announced. Let's say a company like a Mercedes, they previously had 2030 to be the year that they want to be into all EVs, right? But now they walked back from it. Porsche, other ones, in different regions of the world, I think it's going to develop differently. But ultimately, at the end, the end point, right? The end equation is the EVs, right? The fully electric vehicles. We're just not going to get there at the same time. China is going to get there earlier, but Europe later. The U.S. probably will be last. You know, based on the current landscape.
But then,
So,
especially in India, right? There are EV companies, but they don't really sell. And then I've talked to a few people, especially family members, and like, why don't we get EVs? They're like better for the environment. The two main reasons they tell us is one, there's not enough infrastructure. There are no charging points. Compared to the US, right? Almost every convenience store, in front of their store, they used to have EV parkings and then chargers right next to them. But then here, you have to almost like 50 kilometers. You have to drive for one EV charger. So then that's the main issue, right? What if you get stuck in the middle of nowhere and there's no charge left? And
Okay,
then,
before this,
and then there's
before
another thing. There's another reason. It's that EVs aren't very reliable. They blow up. The batteries explode. And then I tell them that's not true. Is it true?
aren't you the one who called me weak for liking an EV? No,
That's crazy. I didn't
no,
I didn't say you were weak. You were just glazing Elon Musk. So
no, not even that. Like a Rimac, bro. Rimac versus your whatever Porsche, whatever, bro.
damn. Okay.
So I mean, in a market like in South Asia, let's say India, Pakistan, that region. I mean, what is? I think the question that I can come back to you. What is the primary personal mobility? It's probably not four wheels, correct?
That's correct.
It's two wheels, right? To me, my understanding, two-wheel mobility is quite is the everyday, and even the same is still true in China. But China, the two-wheelers are pretty much completely electrified. They're all
an
right.
interesting point. You said right now that you said.
Uh,
I want to add on that. Are you done, or do you want to say something?